Welcome to MilSpouse Matters, the podcast dedicated to encouraging military spouses. Need some inspiration as you navigate military life, moves, deployments, raising military kids, keeping your marriage together, career issues, and more? Get an encouraging, humorous outlook from a spouse who's been there for 30 years. Join host Jen McDonald, author of You Are Not Alone, Encouragement for the Heart of a Military Spouse, who knows that we're stronger together. Jen also writes regularly for outlets such as Military Spouse Magazine and has been featured in numerous books and national publications. Grab a cup of coffee or a glass of wine and sit back and relax as Jen talks with military spouses, both new and experienced, who will give you realistic hope and support for your own MilSpouse journey.
Hi guys, it's Jen and welcome to this episode of MilSpouse Matters. Today I'm talking to Renee Walker, and she is the author and illustrator of the children's book, My Letter to Daddy, which is aimed at helping kids understand military family separation and communicating their feelings when missing someone. She most recently received the Key Spouse of the Year award at Little Rock Air Force Base after volunteering in the military community for the past 5 years. She is the mother of 2 young children, aged 4 and 6, and teaches Spanish to preschool children. You can find Renee on Facebook at A Letter to Daddy, or purchase her book on Amazon, or get more information on her Facebook page. So welcome, Renee.
Hi, Jen. Thanks so much for inviting me.
I'm so glad to have you. And I love your picture book that you wrote and illustrated. That's so impressive. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. But I wanted you to kind of introduce yourself to listeners and tell us a little bit about yourself. You sound busy, little kids and teaching.
Yes. I'm an Air Force wife. We've been stationed at Little Rock Air Force Base for quite a while. I met my husband in Colorado when I was teaching Spanish out there. And then we moved to Mississippi where he did his pilot training. And then we've been in Arkansas ever since. So it's been 8 years now that we've been here.
Like you're very settled in there, aren't you?
I do not mind the stability at all. It kind of was a surprise, but we're enjoying it.
And it's very appropriate that I have jets flying in the background. So if you hear that, it's actually on my end for one. So I'm not going to complain because your husband's a pilot. So yes,
no, not at all. We've done our time on base too. We lived on base for a few years, but we're off base right now. So I understand completely.
Well, congratulations on winning Key Spouse of the Year, because that's not an easy thing to do. It doesn't mean that you're just showing up to stuff. It means you're actually volunteering and working hard in the community. So tell us a little bit about that. What kind of volunteering do you do in that area?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It was an amazing award. I was really, really grateful. They presented the award to me in a propeller. It was a huge propeller. But it felt really good to be recognized. I've done the newsletter for the Key Spouse socials, sent those out. I plan play groups. I attend a lot of socials, and we support the families when needed, whether it be like meal trains. I've taken families meals after they've had babies and they need the extra support, or maybe something happened in their family. So a lot of volunteering.
I didn't tell you this, but I've been in, my husband was in forever, and
Yes.
I was part of the pilot Key Spouse program back when it very first started in the Air Force.
That's
and
amazing.
Was a Key Spouse and then a Key Spouse mentor. And so I just have a heart for that program. Nothing's perfect, of course, but I would always tell spouses, reach out to your Key Spouse. They want you to.
Yes.
Just trust me. They want you. They have information to share and they want to support you. So if you're an Air Force family, look for your Key Spouse and make a connection there, because they're amazing.
That's amazing. You're a part of that, because it's so important, that sense of community, especially during deployments when you don't have family close by. I feel like you really need to lean on somebody, that community of friends. So that's what the Key Spouse program's supposed to be.
Well, when it first started, it was very geared towards deployed families. And I think it took them some years to kind of get out of. Now we're not Air Force active duty anymore, so maybe it's gone back to that. But I know then it was kind of broadened out to supporting all families.
Right.
And it was trying to change that mindset that was, quote, just for deployed spouses.
Right.
So I don't know if that's still an issue.
Oh, no. It is hard to get people involved because sometimes it is just easier to stay at home and not, reach out. But yeah, we're in an instruction based squadron right now, like a training squadron, I should call it.
Yeah.
Where they're not supposed to be deployable at this point. So we still do have a good community and a key spouse program. So I would say that you're right, where even if it's not a deployable squadron, that there is still a key spouse community so that you can, reach out to other people if necessary.
You said how long you guys have been married as far as being a military spouse?
We're going on, we're almost at year 10. So I'm just going to call it 10.
So you're just, I don't know what the threshold is for, quote, seasoned spouse, but I think you're getting there, Renee. So what's been your favorite part of being a military spouse so far?
I guess I kind of hit on that earlier when I said community. Since we're not close to family, it's an 11-hour drive away from our family. So if I can create like a good friendship with people around me, that's really helpful. So I'd say community is the best part of the military.
I would agree.
Yeah.
And travel, but if you've been the same place for a while, you have to create your own travel experiences. It'll come. Maybe it'll come, right?
No. Yeah. I did plenty of traveling in college too, especially with the Spanish language. I've been to
there you go.
7 different countries. So I don't feel like I'm missing out, but we did do a deployment. My husband deployed to Germany one time. And went to the Middle East for the other ones, but we did get the chance to go to Germany and France. So
yeah,
we snuck our traveling in there.
Well, and if he stays in, you'll probably still
right. Definitely.
So you guys have been through several military deployments, like you mentioned, and I know that's that was the motivation behind your book. But what did you find helped you get through deployments?
Oh, man, a lot of things. I don't think I could name just one.
Oh, yeah. Well, name however many you want.
Yeah. Let's see. Family, friends, community, coffee, wine, and Chick-fil-A.
Yeah. Oh, those are good ones.
Neighbors were awesome too, especially without having family immediately next to us. It was really nice to have you need that support group, whether it's neighbors or friends, just to get you through it.
Yeah. You can't be an island, even if you feel like you can do it, and maybe you can, but why would you, right? If there's other people that have been there, why not make use of that resource?
It is hard to ask for help, and I'm stubborn in my own ways. I'm an independent person, I feel like I can do everything myself, and I think that's the problem too and also I heard another podcast of yours where they were saying how intimidating it is to reach out, to a new group after you move to a new place, for example. So
yeah,
I can see both ways, definitely.
Well, and I just, even after we had been in for such a long time, his last deployment, he'd been in over 25 years, and you kind of feel like, I got this.
Yeah.
And then I still hit a point of just several things happened. We had a friend pass away, and we were living in Germany. And then I got really sick with pneumonia. And I think my son's car battery died because he was a senior in high school. And I just remember thinking, I got to call in some favors because I literally physically cannot help him. So, and then my husband, he was like, please call. And he said our neighbor's name, please call him. Stop being so stubborn. So sometimes it takes a while to learn these lessons. Do we ever learn it? I don't know.
The deployment curse is tough. It's real. It's real.
It is. And then like you said, you're like, I'm independent. I can do this. And sure, you absolutely can. But there's no shame in asking for help when you need it. Well, and I know that you had mentioned hearing about your husband's base being under attack or being notified during one of his deployments.
Right. Oh man, that was scary. We've been through 3 deployments. 2 were to the Middle East, and this last one that he was on was to the Middle East. And I was woken up at maybe 2 a.m. by a message on my phone from another spouse friend of mine whose husband was also deployed at the same location. She messaged me saying, "Hey, did you hear that the base where our husbands are at is under attack? And have you heard from him?" Because she hadn't heard from her husband. So she's freaking out.
Right. You're like, wait, no, what? Oh my
So
goodness.
it was crazy. I had to like verify that this was the case in the first place because you almost don't believe it, but you're like shaking at the same time. Like, is this real? But
And I don't think you can prepare for how you'll react in that
no.
situation.
Exactly. I mean, like my husband is super calm. He's laid back, and they train them to be like calm in scary situations. But me, on the other hand, I overreact a little bit. Of course, I'm crying at this point because you don't know, like, what's the status? I haven't heard from him. Like, anything could have happened. So
it's that worst case scenario.
Right.
And how long did it take you to hear from him?
Oh, goodness. Quite a while. They actually shut down communications to the base, I think because, probably for safety, or they didn't want the news to get out about it, but it did anyways.
Yeah, of course.
Because we heard about it before the military notified us. But that's the way it happens sometimes.
Right. And it's so hard to like catch that story back once it's out. How can they can't get it back? It's going to get disseminated just because, especially with social media now.
I know. But it was scary because a handful of people were killed by this bombing inside the base, and another dozen were injured. And so you're thinking, I mean, like, what am I going to do without him? Or if he's injured, like, my life is going to drastically change.
Right.
Or even PTSD. I mean, even if he does come back safe, there's just everything going through your head. But it took maybe 2 hours later, I would say, was when we were notified on Facebook and text messages from the commander saying that our men and women from the squadron were safe.
And then you have that guilt, though, because somebody else got a different call, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But then also, like, I trusted the commander, but I also wanted to like hear my husband's voice too. I think a part of me like didn't know it was true that he was okay until I actually heard from him. And that was 7 hours later before they allowed outside communication too. So that was quite the morning.
Right. But yeah, you just kind of sit there and go, you want them to be okay, but then you kind of go, but why not us? Like, this happens. So it's totally possible that this could not end well. So for me, I don't know how I would get through those moments without my faith.
Absolutely.
And some, other people, I don't know how you get through it, but you just have to find a way because there are no guarantees. And I'm not trying to be depressing, but just it's reality with this military life we've chosen. Now, your kids are small. Did you have kids during his last deployment? Is that why you wrote your book? Okay.
Yes.
And then what are some of the things that have helped your children? Because they're pretty young, right?
Absolutely. I'd say maybe routine is the biggest one. Any kind of normalcy, because like everything's changed when their father's not around, they miss him. They'll run to the window trying to see his car when they think that they hear it coming down the road. And I mean, you just got to get into a schedule and a routine. And that's part of the reason why I wrote this book too, because we're book fanatics. I'm always looking to books for good resources.
Oh, yes.
To help, I want my kids to know that they're not alone in this.
I love picture books for teaching.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. That's the teacher side of me, too.
Well, I didn't tell you this when your book came, or I might have told you this. So you'd sent me a book to preview, and my son was on his way home from his first deployment, and my daughter-in-law and my 2-year-old granddaughter were here. Did I tell you this?
Oh, just briefly in an email message, but not the whole story.
So it came and I thought, this is just such great timing.
Wow.
And so then I was showing it to Layla as my granddaughter, and she doesn't really understand everything, but she's looking at the pictures. And then my daughter-in-law, I said, did you want to look at this? And she started to read it and she goes, I can't read this. I'm getting too sad. She said, this is really good, but I can't read it because I'm an emotional wreck right now. It's like, I totally get it.
I've gotten that reaction too. And especially writing it. Oh my gosh. So many tears went into this book.
I bet. Well, it's written from the perspective of an Air Force child. And right?
I wanted it to be in general because there's no reference. I mean, there's pictures of like planes, but that was the biggest thing is so many books were out there for Army. Daddy's in a Humvee driving around in the desert. No, my husband's not doing that. So I needed something that my children could, connect to. Yeah.
I turned one page and it was like a plane with the AMC logo. I'm like, but I mean, they carry lots of troops, but I think that's great that it's relatable to any military kid, basically.
Thanks. Yeah, definitely. That was part of the purpose of writing it is we just couldn't find that book that kind of suited our needs.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is kind of neat, like especially local people who are in the Air Force or around Little Rock Air Force Base, they can see those images of the planes that I kind of integrated into the illustrations. I kind of have I had a vision for my book. I wanted to have it look like people, but I wanted it to be drawings, but I also wanted to integrate pictures into the book because, when Daddy's gone, the kids are still thinking about him. So I'll have like a flag in the background or an eagle. So I kind of had a mix of everything.
I love it. So the book is called My Letter to Daddy. And I think you do such a good job of entering into the world of a child and putting their thoughts into words. Like I'm looking at one page where he's trying to get into a suitcase, kids that's just how they think. Like, can't I come? Can I climb in here? Just remember to bring me. So, and just how they don't understand, especially when they're little. And I've said this before that I don't think there's a good age to have your parent deployed, but when they're little, there's that added challenge of they just don't understand what's happening. And it's so sad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah.
Like 1 minute he's here and you're hugging him and then he doesn't come back the next day and they really don't have any comprehension. You can tell them many times, but I don't think it sinks in until, they again get into a routine of not seeing him. So that's, I think the book kind of helps explain a little bit the feelings of what you go through when he leaves and then, the process while he's away, how you could feel, and then the homecoming at the end too.
Now, Renee, what age group would you say this is good for?
I wrote it for my 3 or 4-year-old at the time. I would say maybe anywhere from 2 to 5 or even more than that, maybe up to 8. I don't know. But yeah, it was basically to help my child, such a daddy's girl. She didn't take deployment very well. And the easiest way for her to react to something was just throwing her body down on the ground and throwing a tantrum. It's like, come on, let's use your words, honey.
Yeah. It's so sad when they're just desperate to see that parent. And one of my kids during a deployment, she was very young, and it was always bedtime was the hardest time. And all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, I've been playing all day and kind of going along. And then I remember I want him. Mm-hmm. And she would just be like, I want my daddy right now. And then she'd cry. And then sometimes I'd cry. You just kind of have to enter into it with them. But then I don't know, did it help them to read the book too? Or was that had deployment passed for you all by the time you got the book out?
It was sweet. The first book was just for my kids. I didn't have any intention of publishing it until I started thinking about it. I was like, my daughter, she loved the chorus. It rhymes. Daddy, daddy, I love you. I love you. I know that you love me. And the whole thing just kind of flows. And my daughter would be repeating that. And then I was like, well, maybe I should, see where this goes. And I put it out on Facebook and asked my friends, should I publish it? Should I go for it?
Yeah.
And I had a really good response. So I'm like, oh, now I have to, I'm committed. So
did you have any challenges publishing or moving forward with it? Because sometimes, as a book writer, everybody's like, oh, I have a book idea. You go, sure.
That's true.
Talk to me in a few months and tell me how that's going. Because it's it's easy to have the idea, but to actually finish it and get it out there, I applaud you because especially children's books. So I'll tell you this, when I first started writing, I thought we had homeschooled for years. I love children's books. I love children's picture books. And I thought I could probably do that. That's easy. And so I did take a children's writing like long course, and about halfway through, I was like,
wow.
I am no good at this.
Oh my goodness.
So I thought, this is not my gifting. This is it. It looks easy. Everybody thinks children's books are easy. And I am here to tell you, it is easier to write for adults than children.
Is it really?
That's my opinion, because you have to have that ability to really enter their world and kind of see the world from their viewpoint, or it just won't ring true for them and they won't pick it up again.
Absolutely. And I think like I had my bachelor's degree was in education. So I took like some child development classes. So I feel like that kind of helped me a little bit, like trying to think through the eyes of a child while I was writing it. But oh man, I was not planning on becoming a writer. So I guess the whole thing was challenging. The small business aspects, the drafts, the illustrations, the formatting. I mean, there's so much more that goes into it than maybe some people think.
Yeah, there's a lot. And then you get the book published and then you have to market.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter.
You're still working on that, huh?
Even if you have a company you're working with, there's still an expectation that you will help with marketing your book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're still always trying to?
Not as much anymore, just because it's been out for a while and it kind of has, I mean, I'll put it out there sometimes, but not as much as I did in the beginning. And then, having a podcast, having a website, those things help. Sure. But yeah. And you don't want to be in people's faces all the time, like, buy my book, buy my book. But you want to share this resource that you worked so hard on.
Yeah, definitely.
And speaking of, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's what I was going to say is like, I try to put it out as a resource because I don't want to be a pitchy saleswoman either.
It's such a fine line. And I know a lot of amazing writers that just won't do it. But then their work never gets to the people that need it. So you have to kind of shift your mindset of, I don't want to be so salesy, to, I want to get this to the people that I wrote it for.
Right. The intended purpose. Like, I didn't go into this to make money. That is not what's happening.
Yeah. Well, most writers will not get rich from writing. So.
Right.
Well, what has been the response to your book so far?
Oh, it's been awesome. I've gotten people messaging me saying, even like I was talking about, I didn't want it to be military branch specific. So even somebody from the Navy on the other side of the United States was messaging me that it was helping her daughter put feelings into words. And most recently, I was trying to get my book out there with a vendor booth. And there was one higher ranking commander that came over and looked at my book, and he got to one of the last pages and he started tearing up and like he was trying to look away from me. And he said he finally got it out that he had looked at one of the last pages with the embrace of the soldier hugging his daughter again. And he said that it stirred up memories of the year-long deployment that he had with the homecoming when his daughter raced into his arms, and he said that was just the best hug ever, and it was the longest hug, and he'll never forget it. So, I mean, it's stuff like that when people are connecting to my book and I see it, it really makes it worth it.
Oh, definitely. It's interesting when people come up to you and they're like, they just start talking to you about your book and you kind of go, oh, it's almost like they've just seen this personal part of you that you've put out there, and it's just a weird feeling. I don't know if you've felt that at all with because there's a feeling of vulnerability of putting your writing out to the public, because now it's just laid bare for people to assess and critique, right?
Definitely. I struggle. That was one of my struggles about putting it out, because we're such a private family, and especially with, everything on the internet these days, it's like, do I put my family out there? I'm trying to keep it more centered to me as the author. But that is definitely one thing that I struggled with during publishing.
Well, it's a balance
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I think it's amazing. I love it. So just a reminder to listeners, it's called My Letter to Daddy. And Renee, you wrote and illustrated it. It's just unique in that sense. And the illustrations, I don't even know what you would call them, like they're kind of photo based, but then artsy. Like
Yeah.
what's the word? I'm sure there's a word for it.
I wanted it to be different. I wanted it to be something that you don't always see in a children's book. So many have like animation characters, but I wanted it to look
Realistic.
like a real person.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is like a mix of drawings and photos. I just wanted to, it's my art.
I'm going to tell you my favorite illustration is the little boy, which I'm assuming is your son, with the sunglasses and the eagle reflected in it and the plane behind him. It's so powerful.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's really amazing. So Renee is giving away a copy of her book. I'm running all my giveaways on Instagram. So when you listen to this episode, just go to the MilSpouse Matters Instagram and you'll find all the details there. Renee, do you have anything else you wanted to add?
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, of course. I'm happy to support and help in any way I can, because I just love this resource for military families. And just a reminder, you can find Renee on Facebook at A Letter to Daddy. Your email is?
It's mypridebooks@gmail.com.
Okay. So you can reach her there or on her Facebook, or look up her book on Amazon, and be sure to enter that giveaway. It was so great having you on the show, Renee. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing about this great resource for military families.
Absolutely. I really enjoyed our conversation today. Thank you so much for sharing my project.
Oh, you're welcome. And thanks everybody for listening. Don't forget to go enter that giveaway. And in the meantime, I hope you guys all have a great week. Bye.
Connect with Jen at jenmcdonald.net or on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. You can also purchase her book, You Are Not Alone, Encouragement for the Heart of a Military Spouse, at Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and other booksellers. Love the show? Don't forget to leave a review on iTunes. Until next time, have a great week.